you said and why. If the triangles are congruent, and if they are, write a congruent statement.
Well, I thought that it was angle side because of the vertical angles over here. And then I got triangle QPR is congruent to triangle MNR.
Thank you. Maddie, tell us, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, but for some reason I got side angle side on this. Like I got the same congruent statement as in one side.
Alright, okay, which one do y'all agree with? Angle side or side angle side? Yeah, angle side, because you have these two are right angles, so they're congruent. These two are vertical, so they're congruent. And in order to be angle side angle, the side would have to be between the two angles, here and here. So since that side's not marked, we use angle side. However, if you were to go a step further, if you know that these two angles are congruent, and you know these two angles are congruent, then what else do you know?
That side's congruent.
Not necessarily. There's a theorem from the last chapter. If two of the angles are congruent, then the third angle's congruent, third angle theorem. So if we know that these two are congruent, then we automatically know that this one is congruent to this one. Now you can use side angle side, side angle side. So you could use side angle side. You just have to show that that third angle is congruent first.
Wouldn't it be, is the segment correct?
Yeah, wouldn't it be PQR?
Okay, let's see, she's got QPR, so the first one should be N. Yep, so N should go first. And then M should go in the middle. And then R. Sorry, to me it all just looks like one name from over there. Very good. What questions do you have for me? All right, you can go ahead and put your bell ringer away. And we're going to take, no, first we're going to go over the worksheet that I gave you back. And you're going to grade it to make sure you did it correctly. Then we're going to take notes. Okay. So on your worksheet, you had to go through and state if the two triangles are congruent, and if they are, state how you know. Okay. So the first ones, I got to mark this shared side by reflexive property, therefore it made it angle side angle. Number two, I got to mark this side by the reflexive property, so that made that one angle side angle. On number three, I could mark these vertical angles congruent, so that made it angle side. And on number four, only two of the sides were congruent, and I could not assume that like these angles were congruent. I had to be told that they were. So that one would be not enough information. Number five, I could mark these vertical angles congruent, so that made it angle side. Six, only two sides were congruent, and there was nothing else for me to be able to say was congruent, so that one would be not enough information. Number seven, all three angles are marked congruent, but there is not an angle congruence theorem. So there's not enough information. I have to have at least one side marked congruent. On number eight, it's angle side, because I could mark these vertical angles congruent. Number nine, I could mark this side congruent by reflexive property, so it's angle side angle. And number 10, I can mark this side congruent by reflexive property, so it's angle side. Okay. What questions do you have for me on the front page? All right, over to the back page. On the back page, you had to mark something else congruent in order to use the theorem that they wanted you to use to prove that they were congruent. On number 11, they wanted you to use angle, side, angle, but they only gave us an angle and a side. We needed another angle. So I marked these two angles congruent in order to use angle, side, angle. And if you put that into notation, geometry notation, that would be angle QCD. So this angle here is congruent to angle DCE. So this angle here. So you needed these two angles to be marked congruent. On number 12, they had the two angles marked, but I needed a side and it needed to be the included side. So I would need this side here, KL, marked congruent to UT. On number 13, they wanted me to use angle, side, angle. Well, I had my two angles because I had two right angles, but I didn't have a side. So I could mark these two sides. I would need to mark these two sides congruent, segment CS congruent to segment SR. Because it needs to be the included side, the side in between the two angles. Number 14, they wanted me to use angle, side, angle. Well, I had the two angles because these two are already marked and these are vertical, so they're good. I just needed a pair of sides and it needed to be the included side. So it would be this side, WV and VK. Okay. On number 15, they wanted me to use angle, angle, side. Well, I had a pair of angles already and this side would be congruent. And in order to use angle, angle, side, I would need E and T to be marked congruent. If I were to mark these two congruent, that would be angle, side, angle, not angle, angle, side. So they should have marked T and E congruent if they wanted me to use angle, angle, side. Okay. Number 16, you could have said two different names depending on which way you wanted to go. All right, so if I wanted to start at this angle with the three marks and go around this way counterclockwise, I would go angle, angle. So I would need this side here, ZX, and then start the same way over here with the third angle, second angle, with side NL. So I would need ZX marked congruent to NL. Or if I wanted to go back the other way, clockwise, and start at X, I could do angle, angle this side, which is YZ, and it would need to be marked congruent to this side over here in M. So either of these they should have done. They didn't have to do both. They just had to do one or the other. They needed to either mark this side over here by the Y and M angle, or this side over here by the X and L angle. Number 17, they wanted me to use angle, side, angle. Well, I had a pair of angles marked and I had a side marked because of reflexive property. So I needed another angle and it needed to be the angle that's on that same side. So they already had this side, this angle. So I needed this angle down here and then also needed this angle up here. This angle up here would be called angle VHG. You know, you start at VHG. And then I just drew that angle right there. And then angle HGI, HGI. Now I just drew this angle down here at the bottom. Okay. Number 18, they wanted me to use angle, angle, side. Well, I had a pair of angles marked already and they have a side. Then depending on which order you went, you could either go angle, angle, side, or angle, angle, side. Either one's fine. I'm going to do the blue first. If I went this way, angle, angle, side, this is angle FKL, and it would need to be marked congruent to angle JKL. Or if I went this way, angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side, this angle here, FLK, would need to be marked congruent to JLK. Now you could have looked at this like it was a rotation, and instead of the two congruent sides being right next to each other, you could have said like this angle and this angle could have been congruent, FKL and JLK. or these two congruent, FLK and LKJ, like those or those. Like this one would be going this way and that one would be going that way. So you could have done that also, and that would have worked. So there's actually like 4 different possibilities you could have put on number 18. Okay. All right, what questions do you have for me on that assignment? All right, I would keep that assignment to study for your quiz on Thursday. And then we're going to take notes. We're starting section 7.3. Now, previously, you have not been allowed to use angle side side. Today, you're going to be allowed to use angle side side, but it's not called angle side side. I've seen it called a couple different things. We're going to call it hypotenuse leg. Some people or some books call it RHS, right hypotenuse and side, but we're going to call it HL, hypotenuse leg. All right, it's good if you have 3 different colors to highlight and mark your things with. Okay. The hypotenuse leg theorem. Hypotenuse is always a funny word. Pretty much hypotenuse leg, it allows you to use angle side side, but we just don't call it angle side side. And the most important factor is it only works on a right triangle. Okay. So first thing, you have to make sure you know the parts of a right triangle. Here's my right triangle, and right here's my right angle. The side that's opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. So it's always going to be the longest side, the hypotenuse. And then the 2 sides that make up the right angle, those are the legs. Okay, so these are my legs, and my hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. It's the side that's not touching the right angle. All right, so what the hypotenuse leg theorem says is if the hypotenuse and a leg of one right triangle are congruent to the hypotenuse and a leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay, so if you're looking at these 2 triangles, they are both right triangles because here is a right angle and here's a right angle. Okay, and then the hypotenuse, which is the leg that or the side that's not touching the right triangle. So this right here would be the hypotenuse. It's marked congruent to this hypotenuse. And then in one of the legs, the corresponding leg, so this leg here, PQ, is marked congruent to XY. Okay, so they're both right triangles. The hypotenuses are congruent, and the legs, a pair of legs, are congruent. So therefore, these 2 triangles are congruent. Okay, so putting that into abbreviations, we would say if triangle PQR and triangle XYZ are right triangles, and PR is congruent to XZ, and PQ is congruent to XY, then triangle PQR is congruent to triangle PQR XYZ. Okay. All right, so let's do some examples. Hypotenuse leg. it says determine if the triangles are congruent. If so, state how you know and write a congruent statement. Okay, so first thing you want to look at is it a right triangle? To be a right triangle, it has to have a right angle marked. Okay, so I notice here that this right angle, this is a right angle, and that's a right angle. So I'm going to mark those right angles. Okay, then I'm going to mark the pair of sides that are congruent. So this side is marked congruent to this side. And then I notice that these two triangles share a side, so I can automatically mark it congruent as well. Okay. Now that you do that, you want to check to see that it's a right triangle, and you need to make sure that it's the hypotenuse that is marked congruent. The hypotenuse has to be marked congruent. Okay, so the hypotenuse is the side that's not touching the right angle. So here's my right angle. This blue side over here in this triangle, this blue side would be my hypotenuse. And over in this triangle, this blue side would be my hypotenuse. So they're both marked congruent to each other. So those are congruent. And now you just need a pair of legs, and we've got the pair of legs, so that is correct. It's congruent by hypotenuse leg. And then you would need to write your congruent statement. So triangle SPR is congruent to triangle. Let's see, we did SPR, so I did the blue and then green. So I'll need to do blue, then green, so QRP. All right, on the next one, I can see right away that this is a right angle, but there's no right angle marked over here. Is there anything that I'm allowed to mark over here?
Now you can mark it 90 degrees since they're vertical angles.
Yeah, since these two are vertical angles, that means they're both going to be 90 degrees. And then this side is marked congruent to the other side, right here. Okay, and I don't see any other sides marked congruent. Okay, can I use the hypotenuse leg? Okay, so I've got to have two right triangles, and I do. The hypotenuses have to be marked congruent, and they are. And then a pair of legs have to be marked. Do I have a pair of legs marked?
Nope.
No. So I would not be able to use this. So I would put not enough information. Okay. The next one, we have a right angle here and a right angle right there. And then we have these two pair of sides marked congruent. And these two pair of sides marked congruent. Bless you. And then they share a side, so I'm going to go ahead and share that side. Or mark that side congruent since they share it. Okay. All right, so now we need to check. Are they right triangles? Yes. Is the hypotenuse marked congruent? Okay, so the hypotenuse in this bottom triangle would be LK because it's opposite the right angle. And the hypotenuse over here would be L or JM, and they are marked congruent. And then I have these pair of legs marked. So the answer is yes, hypotenuse leg. And that would be triangle MLJ is congruent to triangle. I went blue, then green. So that would be, nope, I went nothing, then green. So that would be KJL.
Wait, what'd you put above it? Like the HL and the HL going?
Hypotenuse leg.
Uh,
That's the theorem we're using. So we've got side, angle, side, 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 angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg. It's the weird one. All right, next one. Okay. I have these pair of right angles that are marked. And then I have these pair of sides marked. And then they share a side, so I'm going to mark that side. So my question to you is, are they congruent by hypotenuse leg? Nick, what would you say?
Yes.
Because you have a pair of angles, right angles. This is the hypotenuse for both triangles. So here's the hypotenuse, here's the hypotenuse, and it's marked congruent. And then here's a pair of legs. Okay, so the answer would be yes, it's hypotenuse leg. Okay, and then I'm going to put triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Okay, Brett, what order would I put the other one in if I put this one in ABC?
BTA.
Perfect. Because I went nothing and then green, so I'd have to go nothing and then green, so CDA. Perfect. Okay. Next one. Here's a pair of right angles. Here's a pair of sides. And then they share a side. Okay. So you need to determine, are there right angles? Are the hypotenuses congruent? And is a pair of legs congruent? Abby, what would you say?
I'd say it is. All of them are congruent.
Okay, all right, so let's make sure these are the hypotenuses because they're right angles. Where would the hypotenuse be on this triangle here, DAB? Would you say that this blue side would be the hypotenuse? Is it opposite the right angle? Okay. Now look at this bottom triangle. Is the blue side opposite of the right angle? No, so that one we would actually not be able to do it because this is actually side angle side, and then that one's hypotenuse leg. So the answer here would be not enough information. I'll be very, very careful there. It has to be the hypotenuse that's marked. Okay, the next one, you have this pair of angles marked. And you have this pair of sides marked. Is there anything else that I can mark congruent in this triangle? Bailey, would you say that there's anything else I can mark congruent?
Or like the middle.
Like right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they share that side, so I can mark it congruent. Okay, so my first question is, can I use hypotenuse leg on this? Okay, I can't use that because there's no right angle. Are these two triangles congruent? By what?
Side angle side.
Say that again.
Side angle
Yeah,
side.
side angle side, side angle side. So even though they weren't congruent by hypotenuse leg, they are congruent by side angle side. So, and that is all of the theorems. So now you have covered all of them.
This is page 32 or
33. Yep, this is page 33 of your notes, so make sure you put a 33 in the upper right-hand corner. And then at 7.3, hypotenuse leg triangle congruence, or if you just want to put hypotenuse leg, that's fine. Okay. And then on your worksheet today, it says, state if the two triangles are congruent. If they are, state how you know. So if you just put like side angle side, side side side, angle side angle, angle angle side, or hypotenuse leg, that's fine. That's telling me they're congruent. And then if they're not congruent, just put not enough information. Okay, and I believe that's what the entire worksheet is. Yes. So this entire worksheet, you just go through and say whether or not they're congruent, and if they are, you state which theorem you use, and you're welcome to use the abbreviations. You'll have the rest of class to work on it. What you don't finish will be homework due at the beginning of class tomorrow.